Imagine walking through Jerusalem, where every stone holds secrets from the past. Among the greatest mysteries is the tomb of Jesus, revered for more than 2,000 years as a symbol of faith and resurrection. Could the bones of Jesus remain hidden somewhere, awaiting discovery? Long ago, after Jesus' crucifixion, his followers buried his body in a rock-hewn tomb just outside the city walls. Days later, they returned to find the stone rolled away and the tomb empty. This event ignited a movement that would change the world. The scars of history and conflict have buried, rebuilt, and rediscovered this sacred site over the centuries. The earliest Christians revered the tomb in the 1st century as the place where Jesus rose from the dead. However, Roman forces left the city in ruins when they fell on Jerusalem in AD 70. Years later, Emperor Hadrian rebuilt Jerusalem as a pagan city, determined to erase its connection to Christianity. In an act of defiance against the growing Christian faith, he constructed a temple to Jupiter directly over the site of the tomb. While Hadrian intended to obliterate its significance, his actions ironically preserved its location for future generations. By the 4th century, Emperor Constantine, the first Roman emperor to embrace Christianity, ordered the excavation of the site. Under the rubble of Hadrian's temple, Constantine's workers uncovered what they believed to be the tomb of Jesus. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, a monumental structure honoring the site, began its existence at this moment. The church became a beacon for pilgrims from around the world, eager to see the place where history and faith converged. But the centuries were not kind to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre endured multiple destructions and reconstructions, each adding layers to its rich history. Today, visitors often find the site disorienting. The original tomb is no longer visible in its natural state, hidden beneath centuries of construction and destruction. Instead, a man-made shrine, known as the Edicule, marks the spot. While it may lack the raw authenticity of a 1st century tomb, the evidence supporting its significance is compelling. Archaeologists have uncovered 1st century tombs near the site, which align with the biblical description of Jesus' burial place. Early Christian pilgrims' inscriptions, coins, and structural remnants further confirm the veneration of this location since ancient times. These discoveries offer a glimpse into the lives of those who first believed in the resurrection and risked everything to preserve the memory of the empty tomb. Despite the overwhelming evidence, skeptics have always sought to discredit the story. Theories abound. Some assert the theft of Jesus' body, while others suggest his followers invented the resurrection myth. Yet no alternative explanation has ever matched the depth of historical, archaeological, and textual evidence that points to an empty tomb. Historical events that shaped the early Christian movement deeply tie the resurrection to more than just a religious belief. After Jesus' crucifixion around AD 30, under the rule of Roman governor Pontius Pilate, his followers faced a world of uncertainty. Crucifixion was Rome's harshest punishment, reserved for traitors and criminals. The Roman and Jewish authorities intended Jesus' death to mark the end of his influence. But something extraordinary happened. Reports of Jesus appearing to his followers began to spread. Eyewitnesses claimed he had risen from the dead, walked among them, and spoken of a kingdom beyond death. These accounts fueled a movement that no persecution, empire, or time could extinguish. By AD 33, just a few years after his death, the early Christian community was growing rapidly, emboldened by the belief in Jesus' resurrection. The apostles, many of whom had fled in fear during his trial and crucifixion, became fearless witnesses, often at the cost of their lives. They rooted their courage in what they claimed to have seen and experienced: the risen Christ. The empty tomb itself became a powerful symbol of faith. The first Christians visited the site to celebrate victories over death, not mourning. By the 2nd century, pilgrims began making their way to Jerusalem to see the tomb, which had already become a place of worship. But danger loomed. In AD 70, Roman forces led by Emperor Vespasian's son Titus sacked Jerusalem, destroying much of the city, including the Second Temple. For decades, the site of Jesus' tomb lay in ruins, nearly forgotten. Then, in AD 130, Emperor Hadrian rebuilt Jerusalem as a pagan city, naming it Aelia Capitolina. He erected a temple to Jupiter directly over the site of the tomb, attempting to erase its significance. Yet his actions had the opposite effect. By burying the site under a pagan shrine, Hadrian unintentionally preserved its location for future generations. Nearly 2 centuries later, in AD 312, Constantine the Great became the first Roman emperor to embrace Christianity. His conversion marked a turning point for the faith. By AD 326, Constantine sent a directive to Macarius, the Bishop of Jerusalem, to locate and excavate the tomb of Jesus. Under the rubble of Hadrian's temple, Constantine's team unearthed what they believed to be the tomb. This rediscovery reinforced the faith of millions and led to the construction of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, completed in AD 335. The church served as a testament to Jesus' resurrection, drawing pilgrims from all over the empire. Yet the evidence supporting the resurrection is compelling. The tomb was known and venerated by the early church, even in the face of Roman persecution. Historical accounts, including those by early Christian writers like Eusebius and Jerome, detail the rediscovery of the tomb and its unbroken connection to the events of Jesus' death and resurrection. By the time the New Testament accounts were circulating, the location of the tomb was widely known within the Christian community. Its proximity to Golgotha, where Jesus was crucified, and its description in the Gospels, an empty tomb carved into rock, matched the burial practices of that era in Jerusalem. Archaeological evidence supports this. Researchers have found similar tombs in the region, dating to the 1st century AD, complete with rolling stones sealing their entrances. These discoveries provide a vivid picture of what the tomb of Jesus might have looked like. By the early 4th century, Christianity had spread across the Roman Empire despite relentless persecution. When Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity in AD 312, he ended centuries of oppression and made the faith a central part of Roman society. In AD 326, Constantine's mother, Helena, embarked on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem to locate sacred Christian sites. Guided by oral tradition and local testimony, Helena identified the site of Jesus' tomb beneath the ruins of Hadrian's temple. Constantine ordered the pagan structure demolished and initiated excavations to uncover the sacrosite. What they unearthed was extraordinary, a rock-cut tomb consistent with the descriptions from the Gospels. This discovery not only validated centuries of tradition, but also led to the construction of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, completed in AD 335. The church became a symbol of Christianity's triumph over adversity, attracting pilgrims from across the empire. In the 20th and 21st centuries, archaeological investigations have uncovered even more evidence supporting the tomb's authenticity. Beneath the layers of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, researchers found remains of the original rock-cut tomb, consistent with 1st century burial practices. This archaeological continuity, combined with historical records from early Christian writers like Eusebius and Jerome, underscores an unbroken tradition. Christians have consistently venerated this site as the tomb of Jesus for nearly 2 millennia. To understand this mystery, it's essential to examine the burial customs of 1st century Jerusalem. At that time, Jewish tradition mandated the placement of bodies in tombs for approximately a year to facilitate natural decomposition. Afterward, the bones would be collected and stored in ossuaries, small stone boxes commonly used during this period. Archaeologists have uncovered thousands of these ossuaries in the region, some bearing names remarkably similar to those in the Bible. For instance, The James ossuary, famously inscribed with James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus, sparked worldwide debate about its potential connection to Jesus' family. However, researchers have never definitively linked any ossuary or burial artifact to Jesus himself. Early Christian texts, such as the writings of Paul and the Gospels, emphasize the resurrection but remain silent on the existence of Jesus' physical remains. This silence is striking. In a time when Christianity was under immense scrutiny, any tangible evidence, whether supportive or contradictory, would have likely surfaced. One compelling theory suggests that Jesus' followers who believed in the resurrection had no need to preserve or document his bones. For them, the empty tomb was proof enough. This contrasts sharply with Roman and Jewish traditions, where physical relics often held immense religious and cultural value. The absence of Jesus remains, therefore it may reflect the unique nature of early Christobelief. However, this theory has its flaws. The early Christian community in Jerusalem remained active and deeply connected to the site of Jesus' tomb, even under persecution. Relocating his remains would likely have resulted in some form of recording or commemoration. Yet for skeptics, this lack of physical evidence leaves room for speculation and debate. One innovative perspective is that the absence itself could have been intentional. Early Christians may have deliberately avoided leaving physical remains, fearing desecration or misuse by detractors. By emphasizing the spiritual over the physical, they ensured that the message of the resurrection would remain central. However, the stolen body theory struggles to account for the rapid growth of the early Christian movement. It's difficult to imagine how a stolen body narrative could inspire the unwavering conviction of Jesus' disciples, many of whom faced persecution and martyrdom for their belief in the resurrection. Another possibility, though rarely discussed, is that natural processes may have rendered the remains unrecoverable. Jerusalem frequently reused first-century tombs, removing bones after decomposition and storing them in ossuaries or common burial pits. Possible disturbances or repurposing of Jesus' tomb in the years after his death could have led to the loss or scattering of his remains. This theory aligns with the chaotic history of Jerusalem, which saw repeated invasions, destructions, and reconstructions. However, the lack of ossuary evidence bearing Jesus' name remains a sticking point, particularly given the meticulous record-keeping of early Christians regarding sacred sites. While this theory attempts to provide a natural explanation for the resurrection, it faces significant challenges. The Roman practice of crucifixion was meticulously designed to ensure death, and the accounts of Jesus' burial and the heavy stone sealing the tomb make survival highly improbable. Moreover, this theory fails to account for the transformative experiences of Jesus' followers, who described encountering a glorified, resurrected figure rather than a wounded, recovering man. Beyond historical and scientific explanations, some esoteric theories suggest that Jesus' body underwent a supernatural transformation, leaving no physical remains. According to these views, the resurrection was not just spiritual, but involved a complete transcending of physicality, leaving no trace behind. These mystical interpretations often draw from ancient texts outside the canonical Bible, such as the Gospel of Thomas or Gnostic writings, which emphasize spiritual transcendence over physical resurrection. While these ideas appeal to certain spiritual traditions, they are considered unorthodox within mainstream Christianity. In the annals of archaeological intrigue, few discoveries have sparked as much debate as the Talpiot tomb, often called the Jesus family tomb. Unearthed in 1980 during construction in the Talpiot neighborhood of Jerusalem, this first-century burial site introduced tantalizing questions about its possible connection to the historical Jesus. For decades, scholars, archaeologists, and theologians have grappled with the implications of this discovery, and its connection to the empty tomb remains one of the most hotly debated topics in biblical archaeology. The Talpiot tomb is an ancient rock-cut burial site, consistent with the style and structure of Jewish tombs. Archaeologists discovered 10 ossuaries inside, 6 of which bore familiar New Testament names: Yeshua bar Yehoseph, Jesus, son of Joseph; Miriam, Mary, and Yosef, Joseph. These inscriptions raised eyebrows as they appeared to align with the names of key figures in Jesus' family. The Gospel accounts unequivocally reveal that Joseph of Arimathea owned a tomb outside Jerusalem, where Jesus lay. Early Christian writings and traditions consistently venerate the site, now marked by the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, not the Talpiot tomb. Rather than disproving the empty tomb, some scholars suggest that the Talpiot tomb could coexist with the resurrection narrative. They propose that the Talpiot tomb might have housed the remains of Jesus' extended family or other members of his community, rather than Jesus himself. This would provide an explanation for the existence of familiar names without contradicting the belief in the empty tomb. If you are enjoying this story, please consider showing your support by leaving a super thanks comment. By contributing, you're helping continue the work of exploring profound mysteries, uncovering new insights, and sharing meaningful stories with the world. The missing bones of Jesus remain one of history's most profound mysteries. Whether viewed through the lens of faith, archaeology, or skepticism, their absence challenges us to think deeply about what it signifies. The discovery of his bones could challenge the fundamental faith in the resurrection. Yet their absence aligns perfectly with the gospel narrative of an empty tomb and a risen Christ. For believers, this absence is not a void, it's evidence of divine truth. For skeptics, it's a puzzle that continues to defy explanation. The story of the empty tomb and the discoveries, like the Talpiot tomb, reveal humanity's relentless search for answers. While archaeological evidence offers glimpses into the past, it cannot fully unravel the spiritual and historical significance of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. The lack of physical remains keeps the story alive, bridging faith and history in a way that challenges both. Thanks for watching. Join our community by subscribing to the channel. See you in the next video.